Just remember, Danny, what happened in Juneau stays in Juneau.
I said to report.
I know you did.
You're gonna redact it.
Boy, oh boy. That was a long trip. Not go through that again. Long trip. Like to call to order the City of North Pole regular council meeting for tonight, February the 27th, 2016. Madam Clerk, can you please put up the agenda on the screen there? And then call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Keller,
Here.
Mrs. Clock, Mr. Kramer,
Here.
Mr. Skips,
Here.
Mrs. Welch, Mr. Jacobson,
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
Here. And let the record indicate for tonight on our directors that our Fire Chief Heineken is asked to be excused due to illness, so you will not be here. So if we'll stand for call to order, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, and Ms. Clack, you want to do the invocation?
Prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and having us gather in your name. Help us to know your will. Keep us having a clear mind and search our hearts to know your will. Lord, I pray for those people that are out there in this weather that's dealing with unusual circumstances across the country. I pray for the people who have COVID, that you'll touch their bodies and send the right people for help, that they'll get healed. I pray for wisdom for what you're having us to do tonight as we go through our agenda and conversation. And I thank you in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you. We'll move to an action item number 4, pages 1 and 2, approval of agenda. Please put up the agenda, Madam Clerk. We might get a motion for approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Motion by Clack, approved by Welch. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Sure. Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer, Mr. Keller, Mrs. Clock, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Anyone change the vote? I see none. It has been approved for the agenda. Now we move to action item number 5, approval of the minutes from February 6th, 2023. You can find that, please, Madam Clerk, on pages 3 through 9, the minutes. I get a motion for the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
Motion by Clack to approve the minutes is recorded, seconded by Welch. Any discussion? Seeing none, the minutes are approved as recorded. Thank you. Item 6, communications from the mayor.
Do we need to take a vote on that?
Oh, yes, take a vote on it. Sorry,
Okay, Mr.
Mine.
Keller,
trying to get ahead of it.
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mrs. Clock,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for keeping me on track there. I was getting ahead of myself. So the minutes are now approved for February 6th as recorded. We go to item 6, communications from the mayor. We have the student of the month, Marty Goodwin. You'll find that on page 10, Madam Clerk. And was she aware to be here tonight?
Yes, I just talked to her father just a little bit ago, actually.
Okay, are they en route?
They did not tell me otherwise. They told me they were going to be here. So.
Okay, so we'll hold this for when they arrive then. So I'll go through my communications that you may very well know that we had an entourage -1. We were very happy, Danny Wallace and Ms. Welch and I, to go to the winter legislative session for the 33rd legislature. We actually left on Monday, the earliest flight out to Juneau. We arrived at Juneau ahead of schedule. We arrived to something I've never seen in February, which is clear skies, no snow, no ice chunks in the street, clear walking back and forth to the Capitol every day. We had a very ambitious schedule and we met every bit of it. On day 1, we were up at the Hill to see Senators Clint Bishop, Scott Kawasaki, and our own Senator Robert Myers. And that filled out the entire afternoon with those 3. We were also able to re-examine what we had scheduled for the next day. Next day at 7:30 in the morning, we arrived in time to be at the Interior Delegation meeting. And that's everybody on the Interior Delegation, Senate and House, in a room together at 7:30. That meeting lasted half an hour. And it was chaired by Ashley Carrick, a brand new representative. I've never seen so many freshman members of the House and Senate. 40% of the legislature are freshmen this year. Then we started with Ashley Carrick at 8 o'clock, Frank Tomaszewski at 8:30, Will Stapp at 9 o'clock. I think we saw Mike Crunk at 9:30. The one person that we couldn't get on the Interior Delegation because their committee assignments on that day was Mike Prax, but we'll get to him in a moment. Then we were able to, we were not able to see freshman representative from the East Anchorage district because he had the COVID. So we were not able to see Stanley Wright. He's in the Military Veterans Affairs. You can imagine why I wanted to see him. In the afternoon, we did make a good visit, and I'll let Danny talk more about it when his time comes, but we made a very good visit to DEC at 1 o'clock. And a lot of things that we were trying to do were sort of disruptive there because of the COVID and because of last minute engagements from the governor, like with DEC Commissioner Brune. So things got sort of rearranged that afternoon, but we still got everything across on air quality and water quality that we needed to do with DEC. The one thing that was important when the AML started up on Wednesday, we started right up on time with them. We attended every function that they had, every workshop that they had. We didn't miss a beat of that. Danny has been nice enough to send you guys a little synopsis. I think he did it in 2 parts of what we did on these first few days and what we did the last few days. One of the best visits I had was with Mike Prax. Representative Prax came up to the 9th floor and met in my room with the delegation from 8:08 to 10:10 at night. So it was a long visit, and we were able to go over our legislative priorities and what his feelings were about those. We were able to participate with U.S. Senator, I better say, Lisa Murkowski live in our room down there, the Treadwell room, and get some back and forth with her. The day before we met with her, we saw how she addressed the legislature, and there were a lot of people in the legislature upset with what she was trying to tell them. But this is what's coming. This is the main grasp of what I can tell you that we're coming home with, and it goes something like this: State of Alaska, learn to start paying for your own things. So then that falls down from the governor down to us. you local leaders, you're the closest to the people. Know what they want, know what they need, and try to pay for it yourself. And that's exactly the message that they kept coming back to us with. I heard quite a bit. I'd say that I was sort of impressed by some members, the new freshman members, that they do have an idea of how they score and rank things, and they realize we don't have a bottomless pit of money. And so the way they score and rank things is not necessarily how we score and rank things. We may have to take another look at how we do legislative priorities and not go with so many of them either in the future, because it's just going nowhere. It's very difficult for me to put it in just a few words here because they're just words. But what I recognized was everybody trying to sell their bidding to the next member of the House or the next member of the Senate. And those two bodies are not always on board with each other either. There's one side that seems to be about capital needs of the state and another side that seems to be on the PFD side of the state. So any way you look at it, there's only 4 members of that entire legislature that are not in some kind of caucus, some kind of majority caucus with each other. So it leaves a lot to be desired, but that's the game we have to play with. I'll leave reports later from Danny and from Miss Welch about what she experienced when she was there. But I will say this, we kind of missed you, Jeff. It could have been a really trying trip. Well, that's not the end of the trip. We didn't just finish in Juneau either. On our way home, we stopped in Anchorage to meet with the principal of a company called Two Bear Environmental Consulting. We already passed it through the budget. That's another thing that Zane is reviewing for us, a master service agreement with them to do our grant writing for us. They could also do some of the environmental things that we may need to do with combined heat and power. So we met with Ronnie Wilcox of Two Bear Environmental Consulting first and foremost at the Norton Sound Seafood thing outside of the terminal, the secure part of the terminal. We met with her about 5:15 to about 7:30. Then we were joined by Donna Celia, and she represents HMH, and she and her colleague joined us and took us out on the town to discuss them doing environmental investigation for our combined heat and power. And they still have yet to send me an acceptable copy of what we need. I didn't see it at all today, but what they had wasn't adequate. So that put us on an airplane departing Anchorage about 11:20 at night, and I got home to my house about 1:20 in the morning. So it was a long trip. I have to say that at least. And I don't know if I'd ever do it this way again. And I'll let Mr. Danny Wallace tell you what his impressions were. And I think he's the first director of city services that ever went to one of these too, by the way. So with that in mind, I'll shut down my communications from the mayor, and we'll keep open in case Marty Goodwin shows up as student of the month. So I'll go to item 7, council member questions of the mayor. And if there are any questions, I'll try to entertain them. Seeing none, I'll say questions are closed. Citizens' comments. Are there any citizens, Madam Clerk, online or in the? I see there's none in here, but.
No, there's not.
Huh? No, nothing online. Okay. Well, we go to communications from department heads. And we'll start out with it says HR. Is HR on here tonight?
No, I'm sorry, she's not.
I wouldn't expect her to be. And for those who don't know, she had a nice bouncing baby boy there on Sunday, February the 19th. Grissom is his name. He's named for astronaut Gus Grissom, by the way.
Grissom Gus.
Grissom Gus. Okay. So we'll now go to department head. Danny, would you like to go first? Tell us what we're working on.
Okay, I'll just go over some of the key areas for the city services. For building, things are fairly slow. We have had inquiries about permit requirements from North Star Borough on both the Westcott pool repairs and a fire suppression backflow device installation at some of their facilities throughout North Pole. We're working on both their project managers on those requirements. I actually also visited both Subway and Taco King today. And I nicely made inquiries about what they had done to open their restaurants. We told them that we love Subway and we love Taco King, but I did inquire, and we need to make sure that they are complying with city code on their
Danny, would
building
you talk on
requirements.
your microphone, please? Just pull it in front of you some more.
There we go.
Thank you, sir.
So, and again, they were good conversations, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they comply with code. We suspect that they do. We suspect the repairs have been minor, but we didn't want to check that. For Public Works, snow plowing did occur over the last few days, and we did get I got 3 calls. One of them was out of city limits, and a couple other ones we were able to rectify either on Friday or this morning. So no issues with the plowing that's gone on. And we have received some bids from Phil Hubbard on removing snow to mitigate flooding this spring. We are thinking about flooding during the spring, so we're trying to get a little bit ahead of that. Cody, who's on leave right now, he went over some places within the city that it makes sense to remove snow to try to get ahead of the flooding. And we're taking a hard look at Phil's proposition and then at those bids on that. Also in Public Works, with the help of the police department, we submitted a grant application for a backup generator for the Public Works facility. It's something that we need. We need that redundancy. And we found an opportunity again with the police department. We appreciate that. And then finally for Public Works, North Star Borough will be removing hard pack from the transfer site this week, beginning March 1st. So you'll see the transfer site closed, but that's in some ways that's a really good thing because we always get calls about that road if there's trafficability problems. I haven't been out there yet, but that is a concern of some of the citizens. For utilities, no significant utilities issues over the past couple of weeks. Again, it's been cold. There have been some issues with it being cold, but nothing that's out of the norm for this time in the winter. We spoke a little about the engineering contract with respect, and again, that mostly applies for the utility department. And when we come to that portion, I can answer additional questions. Last week, actually a couple of weeks ago, we had our 3rd working group of discussion dealing with the chronic funding shortage for sewer utilities, the difference between the revenue and expenses. We ranked our 6 potential options, and during the next meeting, the 2nd meeting in March, in later March, I'll give a short a 1-slide presentation on the results of what the recommendations are for the way forward for the sewer revenue deficit. And finally, for utilities, I'll continue to work on grant submissions for our key priorities, which is the water main replacement, some support to the Brookside Park development for utilities and others. We had some great feedback from both DEC, Jason Bruni, and Senator Murkowski's staff on ways to move forward with grant submissions. DEC emphasized some of the new funds that have become available, and the state revolving fund. So actually, we did complete our February 28th was the submission date for the state revolving fund, and we did complete our packet in time for that. That will include a submission for the water main. That doesn't commit us to anything, but again, it just throws our hat in the ring for those funds for consideration. And then from Senator Murkowski's staff, her staff directed us to apply for grants using the again, they used to be called earmark. They're congressional directed spending items they have a list of those and a way to apply on our website. So we're over the next week or two, we'll be pursuing that. Those are due March 17th, and I'm confident that we'll be on track for those. For Moose Creek, no significant changes. We're still projected closing this out on June 30th of this year. That doesn't relieve of a responsibility, but that will be the handoff between the Corps of Engineers and the Air Force and the city of North Pole. And I'll keep you updated on the progress on that. And then finally, for the trip to Juneau, great experience for me to go there and see the processes and the workings and what the limitations are of the legislators. they have very little discretionary funds to put out to the state, to municipalities. So that was one of the points that was emphasized. But they received all of our input and our feedback, and and they know what the priorities are for North Pole right now. Whether or not they make into the legislation appropriations, we don't know, but we did communicate those priorities to our key leaders. I did, as the mayor said, I did email some updates out to all of you. If you didn't get that for some reason, let me know. Or if you want more details on it, I tried to keep it very brief and just give you the sort of the wave tips. That's really all I have. Pending any questions from the council.
Yes. I'll go first as the mayor. When we visited the Interior delegation, what was your take on the energy that was there with them? Their way that they're formed, and we're talking about the delegation, senators and reps. What was your take at 7:30 in the morning with those?
Well, again, it was a good example of a working group getting together, and again, I think they all recognize that they're from the interior, and whether they caucus together or not, they're on speaking terms. They get in a room and they do talk about the key issues. So it was good to see everyone that early in the morning, again, in that environment, in their own environment there in Juneau. So.
Think it made it easier for us to follow up with them as individuals right thereafter? I mean, like immediately thereafter, we were in each of their offices.
Right.
Yeah. And
again, we now certainly we made, I don't know how many, 7 or 8 visits to individual offices and representatives. So it was very productive. And it's interesting, we went to Mike Prax's office, and he's brand new for, hasn't been there too long, or at least he didn't look like he'd been there too long, but
Mike Prax. You said Mike Prax's office or his aide?
His aide.
His aide has not been there very long.
Yeah, his aide not been very long, but had again, getting the insight from someone who's brand new to the process, it was very interesting. So again, good trip overall, very good professional development for me. So I understand how we get our resources.
And then room 924 with Prax, what was your takeaway of what we finally convinced him, in your opinion, to do in our priorities? There's one I was looking for.
Well, your takeaway, Mayor, then was probably different than mine. I mean, he talked a lot about different issues and how he felt on different issues. But again, I think he understood our priorities. He didn't agree with all of them, but he understood our priorities.
I think he's finally coming around to combined heat and power is what I don't know if you've got that from him or not, that he's finally coming around to it.
Yeah. He didn't, again, he agreed that was a priority for the area, for North Pole. So that was a fairly easy sell.
Okay. That worked out pretty good to me. And in my closing comments, I'll talk about 2 people tonight that sort of impressed me. One from Senator Murkowski's office and one that's in the legislature now. So I'll save that for later. Any questions for Danny, please? Who's got their hand up? Hello, Jeff. Thank you.
Yes, where are we at in the design documents for replacement of the steel water mains? Back in 22 February, we had a 35% design document. Where are we at with that as far as the percentage of that?
We have a 15% design document that was done more recently by Respect. That was 15% that was done in December. The previous, I think there had been a previous work done that was I think their bill for that was going to be about $900,000 for the design. And what we did is is that from Stan
Butler?
Yeah,
February 2022.
Right, but what company did that? Because we went back. Stantec, right? See, Respect has a longer history with the steel water mains and the entire system, and we sort of backed off of going with Stantec, and we went back to Respect, and we said, hey, you've got the resident knowledge on where this has been. again, the pipes haven't moved. So, their documentation was helpful for them to provide at a very low cost. I think we paid $14,000 for that 15% design from Respect. And that kind of got us back on track because we felt that between the two that Respect was maybe a better way to at least look at the initial design.
So is Respect then the previous PDC engineering firm?
Yes.
Because they're the ones who did most of our water and sewer designs over the decades.
They were, and again, that's
Okay, that makes
why
sense.
it was very low cost, and they came out with the cost projections for the next step. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions for Danny? Thank you, Danny. Appreciate the report. Chief Dutra, you're next. Or-
So both of our officers returned from the Recert Academy. So if they come in from out of state or they've already had an academy somewhere else, they have to go to a 3-week Recert down at the Sitka Academy. Both of our officers came back not employed by another agency, which is apparently a success. Some agencies went down with 3 and came back with 0. So that's a good indicator, but a lot of recruiting going on down at the academy, which is unfortunate, but a lot of story sharing and people trying to take people from other people. So I'd say that's good. Both of our folks came back and we're quite happy that they work where they work. Officer Kerner did receive his basic police certificate, so we're happy to see him move on to a PO1. We did order the 2 cars. I'm not sure if I mentioned that before, but I figured I'd mention it. The other one's still sitting down there. I'm going to try to see if I can push that to get sent up here and maybe deal with installing whatever's missing here rather than have the car sit there, because it's going on 10 months, I think, since that car was ordered and parts and delayed and manpower and manning. And it's just a mess. COVID effects, I guess. But anyway, nonetheless, we're going to try to get that car up here. So at least have that one. Lieutenant Smith was taught an active shooter course at the Fairbanks Surgery Center. So that was pretty neat. A pretty good attendance there, and posted on Facebook. We are scheduling an internet education campaign for parents that's due to be happening in April. We've done it before about teaching new parents or parents in general that seems like most parents seem to think they're cell phone smart, but these kids are pretty smart themselves, and a lot of advances in apps and hiding stuff. And so this course would help explain to parents how to be more proactive in keeping kids away from the dangerous stuff. So we're having officer come up here from Seward to help us out with that first class. And then hopefully we'll host those on a regular basis for parents that are interested. We're also scheduling, I'll talk about that. So finished up Guys Read at 3 local schools. I did the T. Brown and Midnight Sun and North Pole Elementary. I will be doing next week and a half helping out with Gals Read, because they don't have enough readers. So if anybody interested and knows any women that love to read kids, they could use more volunteers. They're short really bad. So I'm going in to help out with the Gals Read. So they have someone there to help them read. I spoke in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And I also spoke to Senator L.B. Gray Jackson about the policy project. I did send the letter, I think, to the council about that. I think I've spoken to it a few times. It seems like it's getting some steam, although the financial situation of the state seems to be difficult at best. But we seem to have traction. Senator Jackson, L.B. Jackson Gray Jackson has stated she would sponsor the project, which is really nice because she's into police reform and trying to get changes. We advise, of course, this is a great way to get that enacted, and that is a $550,000 startup funding we're seeking from the state to implement a statewide policy project, so that every municipality, small village, or city could have access to a standard police policy that's been vetted and is legally defensible. So it's a pretty interesting project. Senator Clayman, he was very interested to hear what we had to say, and some good questions. So we'll see how that goes. All we can do is try. I think it's a good project, and that is on behalf of ACOP, that of course the folks I belong to. We had to start a hiring app. So the hiring app that we got cost us about $3,000. It was a little spendy. I thought it was a lot, but you know what? In the current situation we're at, we have to give it a shot. If it ends in resulting in multiple hires, then it's great. So we kicked the app off and we immediately got hit with a bunch of folks. And what this app does is it bridges a person applying for a position with an officer or chief or lieutenant or somebody to immediately give them feedback and engage them in a text or an email. And we've gotten dozens of folks that immediately have been engaged. I've been engaged with a few. Lieutenant's been really working hard on this. He's been talking to a lot of folks. I like so far the way it's going now. I think it may be worth our initial investment, but yet we've yet to hire anybody out of it. So stay tuned on that front. But it seems like a good progress from where we were at with very little to no interest to now having dozens of people that we're engaging in conversations online. Folks nowadays like to have immediate gratification and conversation, immediate feedback, that kind of thing. So this does that. A lot of agencies in Lower 40 are having great success with this app. So I think we're a little farther ahead than most on this. So I think it's worth the investment. If it doesn't work, we won't do it next year. So or the year after, but we'll see how it goes. Lieutenant is extremely engaged in recruitment efforts. I mean, he is working the videos and the boosting and the phones and emails and just trying to improve on everything. He's going out to Fort Wainwright and Eielson on their outreach out processing folks. He's got a couple, 2 or 3 that came in. One came in for a ride along. So it's just a constant labor intensive, time consuming effort. But nonetheless, kudos to the Lieutenant Smith for doing that. He's really kicking it off and working hard on that. So stay tuned. Hopefully we get some interest and get some folks processed. He is putting out some new videos too. If you haven't had a chance to look at them, go on Facebook. They're there and they're pretty cool. He's taking a lot of good shots of North Pole and he's stitching them together with some drone footage that he shot and just beautiful music and just great recruitment effort. So I am doing a self-defense class on Saturday with the girls soccer team. That's pretty cool. We did complete a range update for the APOA. I sent that to you, and that was a lot of work went into that. That was the final product was sent to the legislators. It doesn't seem like it's getting a lot of legs, but nonetheless, we want to keep the issue in front of the legislators to make sure they're aware that there's a need for the range in the interior. I did attend the APOA board meeting on Friday. So last but not least is the stats. If you do see there's a significant movement in activity, specifically DUIs, certainly troublesome. Since this January, we are now up to 11 instead of 7. That is a significant increase year over year. And so are the impounds. Seems like we're getting a lot more impounds for no insurance and such. So the numbers are high, certainly good. There's activity. I can't tell you why the DUIs are increasing. Sign of the times may be disturbing to say the least. They haven't been that high in quite some time. And if we're at 11 already, that's going towards a pretty good high for an end of year if it continues that trend. Otherwise, I think for the most part, most everything else is fairly consistent. So that's all I have. I'll answer questions.
Yes, Chief. I was looking at those numbers on the stats and boy, I mean, it's like in some places double just total calls for service in itself or self-initiated. If I look at a lot of these things, traffic stops, they're up 5 times what they were in the same period last year. Do you have any idea why that is? Doing what, better enforcement?
The traffic officers out there are very active and we have a couple of new folks and you had a couple of people in field training, which tends to spike those numbers, but you know.
It's really incredible when I
But
see that.
with-
Total arrest, 21 versus 1.
Yeah, with that comes generally more DUIs, more arrests, more impounds. So it's,
Where are the impounds at on here? I don't see.
they're not listed here, but
They're not.
yeah, I just got an email from Sergeant Pagandy. He was looking them up today and there's 42 impounds and you guys raised that, to that on that cost. So-
Chief, if you'd like, I'll share with you what I learned because I'm coming back to give a legislative report. So I'll tell you in regard to your range, I'm going to give you some feedback. Okay. You've heard it from me before too. They're having a hard time with it at the legislative level, regardless of what the governor said or what the DPS says. The legislature isn't behind it for a couple of reasons. One is it's got 4 different ways you could do it. And one's bottom basement, one's pie in the sky, and the other 2, I think the one in the middle is probably just about the right way to go. But they just can't get behind it because they still can't start to figure this was something that was taken away up here with really, they figure they don't care if we only were given a year's notice that you weren't going to have a place to shoot at the airport. And they can't seem to understand how many different agencies are involved in this. But the bottom line is one person's trying to find a solution. And I'll just tell you that's Representative Stapp, because he has his ties to Wainwright. Has that been explored using Wainwright's range for your needs? Is
Yes.
that acceptable?
No.
And tell me why, so that
We don't have the manpower to be able to handle their requirements. We don't have someone to man the gate. We don't have somebody on medical. We don't have somebody, one person for every three. They have these stringent rules that we'd have to abide by, and we can't do. The troopers can't even do it, and
No.
they've tried themselves. It's just too arduous. Plus the scheduling. Now we've got to be able to schedule things out, and then their exercises have priority and they bump us, just like Allison, same thing. But Allison's our go-to, and that's where we've been. They're expanding that range. They've been very gracious and helpful, but we got booted off there, twice. Off Allison, when we set a date, we got booted. We had to move it to the day after Thanksgiving one time. And, sometimes we get people coming in the middle of our shooting, and it's difficult for me to explain in a public forum, I guess, without insulting anybody, but having police officers doing tactical training with other people that they do not know or are not vetted behind them, watching them, is unnerving at best. I just will say it's very unnerving. I don't know who's watching, what they're doing, and to expect someone to focus completely on what they're doing up front when they've got folks behind them or someone else with a gun on the range. I mean, I guess that's hard to convey to a legislator who doesn't
a
understand.
lot of times these are just words to them. They can't visualize what you're talking about.
Plus a lot of those folks using the range, I'm not saying any particular person, but they're not vetted. We don't know who they are. We don't know anything about them, whether their standards are the same as our standards. I don't know on any given day who's using that range. So those are just hurdles we face. There's just a couple of them. I'd go on, but those would be the main ones with Fort Wainwright. It's not as easy as he's making it sound.
Well, he just knows that it's available. But then again, I'm asking you, in your best opinion, is it worth me pursuing with the garrison commander, Colonel Surrey, or not?
If they could drop all of these requirements that they're making us do, and they can give us, the times to schedule and fine, and we have the security that we need to be able to conduct proper training, sure, I'm all for it.
There was one other element that came up by more than one rep. And that was, is there any way that the public could somehow be involved where they could use it too? Not on the same days, but that they do it in a responsible manner as well.
That's a difficult
That's
thing.
a difficult thing.
Yeah, you've ever seen a public range that's been used responsibly? I'd be surprised,
Yeah.
but they tend to get shot up, and they're shooting up everything. And again, you could Chugach has it. We've discussed this before. So Chugach has two ranges in the same area, separated. So the public range is within the same compound.
Yes.
But yeah, they have to have no visual and be secured fencing so that we don't have to worry about, other folks prying in on being able to take a bead on an officer from a elevated position, which is not safe.
So my only takeaway from that is, my suggestion is, when we write it up, if we write it up again, just give them, this is our solution, one solution, and not eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Yeah, that is difficult because I being, as the APOA president said, I'm the last man standing,
Yes.
fighting for this project, and you're trying to herd cats when you have multiple. You have AST, you have Fairbanks, you have North Pole, you have APOA, you have a lot of people at the table in order to bring together solutions, and you have this group wants this group wants that. It's not easy
I know it's not.
in managing those different priorities. So that document was meant to say, you can give us $1 million and we could do something, or you can give us 18 million and we could really do something. And then there was the indoor facility
Yes.
that actually makes sense depending on where it's put.
Yes, sir.
The UAF discussions come up where the old range was at UAF, that area would be a prime location for a facility of that nature, or out here, maybe if that heating system goes through. So they're all make sense. And right now we're just trying to give them options and that's kind of what that document was. It was kind of a way to marry everybody, marry all the ideas and the funding together. So
I suppose that you guys are gonna have to work it out among yourself then to try to come up with the penultimate option and stick with that. And I did not get to meet with the DPS commissioner because the governor pulled him away at the last minute and they sent somebody else to fill his stead about something entirely different. So I didn't get to meet with him after all.
I think we have a couple options left. I think we can pursue a federal funding because the feds took it away. I mean, maybe they might be sympathetic to funding it as well, or get together with Fairbanks and the city of North Pole and we figure out a solution for ourselves and leave unfortunately, limit the partnerships that we have to those folks who are willing to make something happen. And because we understand the importance of that, whereas DPS at one time got us on board with this. They started this whole discussion and now they're not interested because they've got other priorities. So maybe we need to, focus our attention on what we need and not necessarily include those folks in our partnership. They can come use the facility if we make a facility happen, but we may just need to do that ourselves.
Well, just so that you'll know, we're not throwing you under the bus. From here, we have Two Bear Environmental Consulting that I mentioned earlier, that we already put funding together from all departments for this budget to bring them on board. If the council will approve that on March the 6th, then you'll maybe have a way to get a grant for that. Okay.
Correct.
That's what we're trying for.
And I did pitch that to that nice lady. So let's just say, for instance, there are Pitt and Roberts funds available that we could do a public partnership, like a public range with a police range joined. We could come up with 10% and the Pittman Roberts funds could fund the 90%. So I think it's doable for just the city of North Pole and Fairbanks, maybe to work out some sort of a funding to get and then design this thing so that it includes a public aspect and make this happen without having any state politics involved and just do it ourselves.
I can't get wise to the politics there, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
So
I've spent 4 years on this now. It's exhausting.
So there was a gentleman down there in a trooper uniform
Yes.
that talked to us. Do you remember?
Instead of the commissioner.
Instead of
When the
commissioner.
Commissioner didn't show up.
And I don't remember, he didn't have a card on him. And I asked him specifically about the range and what we could do. And he said that he had also heard from somebody that it might be possible to use the range. And I asked him if he could be in assistance and help us push this, because he realized how important it was for us to have well-trained people. And I said, well, if the legislature is not going to help us out with money, would it be possible that he, from his position, could maybe help us broker a deal temporarily with the people out there? And he said he would look into that. So you might hear from him. And I'm sorry he didn't have his card, so I don't remember his name.
It
But
was a last minute
yeah,
substitute.
I might be able to get it from AML. I was just looking over here to see what was in there, but yeah, they were. And the other thing was about the public using it. What they were looking into was saying that it would be certain user groups, like, for example, instructors that are doing, concealed carry permits or something like that, things that are under control, not people just going shooting crazy wild, not open range type thing, but specifically for courses and hunters training and those kind of things that would be with an instructor who is supposedly able to keep control of people. So
Yeah, that document we supplied to the legislators had hundreds and hundreds of hours put into it. Now with public meetings, funding from the legislatures, it's just an enormous amount of work went into it. And, how it turned out.
So we were advocating for it, not just because of North Pole, but because the entire interior that's going to use it. So it's very difficult to get their attention sometimes. So any more questions for Chief? Thank you, Chief.
I have a question.
You had one?
What do the state troopers up here use? They have to go down and anchor it somewhere, or
Gravel pits.
Gravel, sandbar.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Fogarty, you're next.
Okay, I have to be brief. I don't have a lot to go over, but last week, it was my week back from vacation and we spent some time with Tyler. We had some issues with assessment billing. Normally we bill assessments in January and we feel like there's something quite not right with the conversion. We have a appointment to meet with somebody Wednesday at noon to iron all that out. And we did have another meeting with a conversion analyst that's going to convert sales tax and business license. And the go live date, if everything goes smoothly, will be sometime in March and then we'll be done.
Ms. Fogarty, how's it going with Altman and Rogers?
We had an initial meeting with them. We told them that, we really weren't going to do anything until we paid everything for 2022. We have one more payment. We should be able to get out the door this week.
Okay.
And then we'll start closing things up and,
So in my absence, did Alliance Accounting said that since you haven't contacted
got any contact with Gary. I did talk to Charles before I left on my vacation and told him that we didn't have an engagement letter and they normally give us a list of things that they are wanting for us to provide to them so they can start the audit. I have the list from last year, but he said, well, it might be okay, but he was going to review it with Gary and get back to me. So I'll make another call this week and see what's going on there.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised coming to the end of February, we don't have an engagement letter.
Right, me too.
Surprised.
So yeah, Gary was on vacation as well. I think he was supposed to get back on the 19th. Is my recollection.
That's what they told me
So
the day before I left town, so didn't hear from him. Any questions? Yes, Ms. Welch.
So I was just kind of curious going over some things that happened on the internet here the other day. Do we have people who have Verbo and other type of vacation, short-term vacation things? Are they paying taxes and are they registered with us?
Bed tax.
yeah,
really?
we have folks that are doing the Verbo or Airbnb. We do have a few of those.
Is that ever something we look into to make sure that everybody is?
I had a call from a company that said there was quite a few, but I tried to explain to them that 99705 is a big area. That doesn't necessarily mean they're in the city limits. So we, from time to time, Sally, accounts payable clerk, she also was doing something similar to that, but then she rented out their other side just month to month. So she'll go on and kind of take a look at those things. She did contact a couple people and they came in and got a business license. And they're doing sales tax or bed tax rather.
Yeah, because I was just looking at just pulling up the map, what's within and is putting it from $0 to whatever.
Right.
And there's quite a few, including some in that
Yes,
apartment
I'm aware.
complex over there.
Yes. I haven't noticed the pictures of that place, but anyway, we won't go down that road.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any
Uh-huh.
questions more for Tricia? I don't see any. Thank you, Tricia. Just lost my letter here. City Clerk, Madam Clerk, what do you have for us tonight?
Let me find me. Hold on. My presets are not working.
Find yourself.
Well, Jonathan Huff from Universal Productions is supposed to have come back out here to take care of some of these little details, and he has not yet contacted me. So good evening, everybody. I had a nice, short, quiet week back from vacation. Cancun was amazing. It was refreshing, and I recharged my battery and got a lot of sun and drank some margaritas, and it was a good time. So I did have a quick meeting with Revise today. We are talking about finishing up the migration of the old pages on our site to the new site. So hopefully next week I'll have a better update for you guys on when we're going to go live, which should be in the next 30 days. So that's super exciting. Last week I completed an Athenian dialogue training on this book called The Gift of Imperfections. If anybody hasn't read it, it's a terrific read. And that's all I got.
So Madam Clerk, I have a question. With Revise, will we be able to merge or link or populate other websites or have them populate into our website like North Pole Community Chamber of Commerce, things of that nature?
Like links?
Yeah, links.
Yes, absolutely.
But any way that they could have access to a commentary page or something like that with us, or is that too risky?
That's a little risky, but we can talk about what you mean by that.
Yeah, saying so that they could have their little corner.
Oh, so they have like a little letter from the chamber kind of.
Their board of directors.
Oh, okay,
so
yeah.
we can keep
Well,
up.
I mean, if they're that interested in doing it, absolutely, we can totally make that happen.
Thank you. Any
Sure.
questions? Yes, sir. Jed.
I would caution against that. A municipal website should just be for municipal activities. If you want to do a resource with community links that would take somebody to a different page, like the Community Chamber of Commerce, that's one thing.
Yes,
But there should not be anything on the city website that is not city business. So
Okay.
there should not be a document from the Chamber of Commerce on our website. There should not be a listing of their board of directors. All that should just be a link to their website.
that's what I was referring to, a link to their website. I hope I didn't confuse anybody what I'm asking. I do mean a link that we can have a hyperlink or whatever we call it. That's what I'm referring to. So that if they want us to know what events they're doing or whatever, you just link here. You know, we say, go here, and this is where you find it at. Anything else for the clerk? So we go to the borough reps report or the borough rep. Do we have a report?
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
We were hoping to be out of here by 8:30, but things running a little long. So this is going to be quite brief. I did go to the borough meeting and I let them know about Taco King and their hours. And I found out that the young lady who is running the Shogun Garden Vietnamese restaurant, I didn't have a chance to talk with her yet, but one of the borough young ladies let me know who she is. So I will try to get a hold of her and find out when they're opening. From what she told me, they were having problems getting some other supplies in. So that's what they were running into. With that, the point of interest that came up was the ordinance for 2023-18, which happens to do with our Brookside Park, and they were going to be discussing putting in a playground. So with that, they have already getting ready to discuss that, and they'll get ready to discuss it again for open comments in March, I believe, if I recall correctly.
Who putting in a playground?
The borough would be.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And that's all I really have for you. Now, on the second part of that, you guys were out of town, and so we got an invitation as a North Pole invitation to attend the VA cutting ribbon, and that was very good. That also came on the news tonight. So if you haven't had a chance to catch the 6 o'clock before you got here, catch the 11. I had a chance to talk with Dan Sullivan and Lisa. Lisa was entertaining the Veterans Affairs director. So with that, I just pretty much put in a plug with Dan Sullivan, who let me know to talk with his assistant. So he will be trying to come out sometime in the month of March so we can discuss some of interests that we may have. And he wants to know what our city council is about.
In reference to that new facility, Mountain View, second floor, What did you learn about it? If you went to
Well,
that?
I've been on the second floor before they went in there.
Mhm.
As far as I can tell, it's going to be very good for the veterans.
Mhm.
As far as I can tell, they'll have the chiropractor and some other doctors and things that will be coming in to help alleviate. The other thing was they would not have to worry about going on Fort Wainwright.
That's right.
So that makes it a lot better because there's a lot of people that are having problems getting on Fort Wainwright. Some people don't have cars, some people don't have the passport
Yes.
ID to get on. So it's ID personal and it's ID on your car. And so that's also a lot of hassle. And I can relate because I usually go out with my daughter and a couple other friends. So with that in mind, I think it's going to be a good plus. So it was pretty busy while we were up there for the ribbon cutting. So everything was good.
Yeah, I
And-
was seeing it on the 5 o'clock news tonight. So I was impressed that they have medical and physical therapy,
Right.
acupuncture.
Yep.
Which I'm undergoing that too, and also chiropractic. So that's going to be pretty good for the veterans, I think. Thank you for doing that for us then. Any other questions from the borough rep? Thanks for a nice report. Where are we going next? We go to item 10, ongoing projects report. I had put under this for tonight. The idea, I went back and researched what I was doing with our attorney. I put under here tonight that we could discuss, we don't need to go into depth, but I'm thinking that even Councilman Jacobson gave us some important information here, but it's about putting together what we can to provide for March 6th for us to discuss a policy that we have. And that would be for bullying and sexual harassment, which I think is an important policy. That was policy for the most part was part of the total compensation committee. It was part 3 that came out June, July, in the first week of August of 21. But it was a request from 2 members of the council back in March of 21. So how it got to where it's at, the last thing I have from our counselor, Zane Wilson, was on February 10th. And I think, Madam Clerk, you were already on vacation then. That's why I asked you when you're on vacation. I think that's what happened. He attached his updated red line edits and a clean copy. He says, unable to clean up the formatting issues in red line. I appreciate additional time to complete my review is what he was saying. And the last time I responded to him about it was February 14th. So it seems like we got a disconnect there, but I had to make a command decision somewhere on that. But he's going to be prepared to meet with us. If we want to spend any time tonight, we can. Otherwise, I just met Mr. Jeff, I'll get there. Otherwise, we can just tackle it on March 6th. And the question is, do we do it under coming in at 6 o'clock in the evening and throwing it into 30 minutes, or do we do it as part of the agenda? That's my only question. If we don't want to tackle it tonight, how do we do it on March 6th when he's available? He had 4 issues he was trying to juggle for us, and he had just got back February 4th, so which was a weekend. So yes, Jeff, your question.
I appreciate Zane taking a look at this. I did not appreciate the fact that his first send out was all in red ink, and it was very difficult to determine what changes were made. So thanks to our city clerk that was able to decipher that and show what changes he actually made. So that's something that our city attorney needs to understand, is that there needs to be a clear indication of original language and changes. I did pass out tonight 2 handouts that I thought would be pertinent to our ongoing discussion about the harassment policy. One is a temporary employee new hire checklist. We also do it for permanent employees, but you'll see on the front page that there is a place that's called harassment is illegal.
Mhm.
And there is a 2-page handout that basically informs the new employee that harassment is not tolerated at the city, and they sign it and it goes into their personnel file before they even begin their job. And the reason why I included that was because in the document that Zane gave us, he was saying that they would have within the first 120 days of employment. That is ridiculous. It should be within the first day they show up. That's part of their onboarding. They read this policy, they sign it, it goes in their file. And also, the other change that he made was that he removed that all city employees, committee members, council members, would not have to have annual training. Annual training is mandatory. In my decades of experience, bullying and harassing is the #1 violation and workplace issue. It's important and imperative that we not only have it as part of our code, but we also have a policy and an educational handout. I did include the AML harassment prevention for this year, 2023. It's a 4-pager that can be easily turned into a part of the annual training that's required by everybody. This is a no-brainer. I'm disappointed that we didn't have Zane tonight at 6 o'clock as we discussed prior. But I do think it's important that you look at the handouts that I provided, that you look at the changes that Zane made, and that if it's the desire of the council to have him meet with us at 6, or if we feel comfortable with making changes on our own without him, as the mayor said, that's our decision tonight.
And please let me know tonight, because I know I'm supposed to see him tomorrow after 1 o'clock. So about this and other things too. So,
Yeah.
Yes, discussion, please.
So this one is something that comes from Fairbanks, right? Is it the
Correct.
new hire thing? It's just verbatim what you give your new hires.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They walk in the door, they want a job, and we hand it to them. They have to sign it right away. Read it and sign
And
it.
with that, this is
That's
what
not-
UAF does as
Excuse
well.
me,
Oh, sorry.
I have the floor. So this particular thing here is not the training as such as what they are talking about, right? I
This
mean,
is-
like, for
this is
example, in the school
establishing
district.
The policy that there's a harassment policy. This is it. You have read the policy. You are
Yes.
on board.
So
Then you
this-
could have the training later on.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. For as far as acknowledging we have it, should definitely be part of the onboarding. I know the school district has a video course that you sign up for, among many other ones. And it's less than an hour's worth of information. I'm sure our HR person also has part of her similar training, like the slip and fall hazards and all that stuff. I'm sure she has stuff available like that, but I agree with you on that, Jeff.
Let me ask you, Pro Tem, in Fairbanks, when do they do that on an annual basis? Is it a set time that everybody has documented in their personal folder?
Well, Public Works, I probably do it 3 times a year
Mhm.
because people have to be reminded, and we have new employees coming on, so I do it frequently. The fact that we have a policy and they've read it and they signed it, that can be considered training because it's basically educational information. It's very common sense. But what we like to do is also give them the opportunity to have questions and answers. So that's why there's that mandatory annual training, because things are always new coming up. There's things that people are saying or doing that may be popular or trendy that can become offensive, new terminology. So that's where the mandatory annual training comes in, where we all get together and in each department anyway, and say, okay, this is our current policy. These are the things that you should or shouldn't do, and just have some open discussion on situations. And there's always examples of how people have gone astray by not listening to the visual and verbal cues that someone has said, stop, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to experience it. And that is where we say it's zero tolerance. If someone says no and you do it a second time, you're in trouble. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Does HR lead that training or is that done departmentally?
It's done departmentally by each of the departments. HR
Supervisors?
can be involved if they
Okay.
want to, and
Okay.
we've had HR come do it. I end up doing it at Public Works just because we have a monthly safety meeting.
You do it 3 times a year. I was used to twice a year, always in October, which is beginning of the fiscal year. And then as your appraisal review, it's part of your appraisal in April for your performance appraisal. So
I could
Mr.
probably say
Clark,
of all
you
my
had a question.
terminations.
Yes,
Yeah.
excuse me.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
You were mentioning that you would do it 3 times a year or on the annual basis. Okay, so my past experience is always on the date of your hire. Okay, as one of those. Okay, and I believe you're making mention with you being in the military, how yours is being done.
No, I've said federal, not.
Yours is
military.
federal?
I was. federal.
Okay, so with that being said, it is best to have it done because as Jeff said, the language changes
Yes.
for what's going on. And speaking with Jeff down in Anchorage during the AML, he mentioned that there's new words and terms and how people are getting caught up and getting sued because of certain things that people are not aware of anymore. He mentioned that we need to go ahead and try to implement this as soon as we can. And so that's why we're making the suggestion that this get done. Also seeing that it does need to be in code to make sure that things are being followed up, and because policy and code are supposed to help to make and correct a behavior. Usually the behavior, if it's not corrected right away, or if you bring on a predator, you're not aware that you brought on a predator. Looking at what Zane put in for 120 days, that's allowing a predator into your facility. Okay, so.
I don't know where he came from up with that.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what I have a problem with his document,
Mhm.
okay? Like Jeff said, and my past experience being born and raised here in most of these businesses here in town and working at the university, owning my own business, you are to bring people on with the sexual harassment and bullying because you don't know what you're bringing in yet, okay? So this is a safeguard, okay?
This is important with AMLJIA because that's who we do our joint insurance with.
Right,
They
but I
don't want- they
understand
don't
that,
want
and
us
that's
to-
where the young lady got some of the information
Right.
to put our document together.
I'll bring this document. So what do y'all propose that we have a workshop? I mean, not a workshop, that we actually put it on the agenda for 6 PM?
If you're gonna bring Zane in it, me personally, I don't think Zane needs to be here. He's
Okay.
already seen the document.
Okay.
Our HR, which was the other variable I was gonna bring in, our HR, in my past experience, has always been the one to
Okay.
do the training.
All right.
It's never been a department head.
So-
And the fact being is when HR is saying by signing the documents that this is taking place,
Yes.
when your department head is being served that so-and-so is doing something,
Mhm.
they can go to the HR personnel and pull the file and say, I taught them on these 3 days
Yes.
and this is when it transpired. Okay, that also goes in with your experience with the school district. Okay, because I've been with them several years as well. So this information is also done and also done with the training. And there has been, where I've been, some people who were the predators who have done this, and HR jumped in and took care of it and fired that individual ASAP. Okay,
So in my federal experience, I was an advocate and I hated representing people. I had what was called duty of fair representation for people that had committed things and I have to represent them,
Mhm.
knowing darn good and well what they did was wrong. I
Mm.
always hated that. And I did that for 5 years. So,
right.
Yeah.
You have 2 hands down.
yes, Ms. Well.
So, are you, I don't know if we're proposing or suggesting that either it is a course that's run by HR in person, or is it possible for us to do something similar to what the school district does. I don't know if they do. I've never done an in-person one. It's always been a video one that you watch, and then there's a test at the back end of it, and you had to
Right.
document that you sent and that you took the class, the 1 hour video, whatever it was, and then send it in.
It would be what you just suggested is what she will be doing, and she'll be able to monitor on screen. And when you did it and the time it was done, as you said, also the final test. And if you haven't passed the test, you have to go back and redo the video
Yeah.
and take the test. So that's exactly what she has put in play for this aspect of what we're talking about. Okay.
And I'm sure that our insurance company will have appropriate access to something like that, because
It would
when
be,
when you do it with a person that's teaching it, it is every time it's a little bit different. And so I could present it in one way with my bias for it. You could present another one with your bias, and then people are going to get the wrong information. I think if we're going to do a training as such for something that's this important, it has to be a video based, even if it means that she sits here in a room and they show a video on the screen, and then they had to do a test afterwards. But it has to be, make sure that the information that's given is always the same to him and me today, and to these people out here every year or whatever it is. So
and that would be what's going on. That was the suggestive aspect. It would be a video
perfect.
and a test.
So the question is, will HR be available with that for us on March 6th?
Whenever her maternity leave is done,
She won't be available then.
if you're talking about what, approving this or doing the video, or what are you speaking
No, I'm
on?
talking about just the wording of this to make this policy. I don't think she'll be available in 6 more days.
I think
Or
with
7 more
part
days,
of what
maybe.
she was already working with, she
Yeah.
might be able to get it done with our city clerk.
Yep.
Because she was almost finished until the baby came.
Okay. So, Jeff, what's
Well,
your suggestion?
As far as her schedule is, we're looking at introducing this on March 6th and then adopting it 2 weeks later on
2
the
weeks later.
20th.
Yeah.
So I think I agree. We don't need to have Zane at a 6 o'clock work session.
Nope.
I think the fact that we've got his edits here, we can go ahead and make any modifications between now and the 6th and the 20th of March.
Mhm.
One of the things that to say, as far as anytime you do harassment training, you need to document it. So one of the things that we do when I do it 3 times a year, I pass out the policy where there's a signature required, and everybody in the room has to sign it, and I collect it and it gets sent to HR. So there's tracking of that.
Right.
So whether you do it online and you track it that way, or whether you have them sign a document that goes into their personnel file, I think that's something that the HR person can probably best determine, so that the resources are available. I think just the fact that we have a policy that says that as part of onboarding, they receive something, they read it, they sign it, and that every year there will be training provided. How that training comes about, I don't think we should get down in the weeds too much with that, because people have different schedules, they have different availabilities. And I think our HR person probably could come up with a model that would comply with the AML-GIA standards.
So we could put it as part of the general schedule of March 6th. Miss Welch, you have a final?
Or I'm just thinking that one of the things that we should also think about is that we might want to set a time limit for training as such. Because if you have somebody who onboards at, in January, and we don't train till quite a long time forward.
This document that they sign when they onboard is essentially training. They are bound by this. They
True,
don't have
so-
to have a second training to say that they didn't receive.
So we're
training.
looking at maybe training, maybe every quarter, providing training every quarter, so that,
At least semi-annual, I would imagine.
I think we're getting down on the weeds again.
We're-
If you sign a document that says harassment policy for the city of North Pole, and you have a copy of it and HR has a copy of it, you've been trained. Well, all we're saying is that in addition to what's in your file, we would like to have ongoing annual training for employees in addition to.
Yes.
And so we don't need to stipulate, it has to be within a certain amount of time. It has to be this number of times a year. Just that annually, everybody's going to get trained again. But everybody who walks in the door as a new employee, reads the document, signs it, and is, as per se, trained.
First day. If you think about it, any job you guys had in the past, the first day you got served with these documents.
Exactly, like the no smoking, the zero tolerance for drugs and alcohol,
Right?
the cell phone use while driving. I mean, all of these things that an employer puts out there right away.
Illegal used to be a computer.
They don't spend, they don't have somebody sitting in front of a computer doing all of this training. They do it in a variety of ways. We don't need to get down in the weeds. We just need to say, these are our policies and these are, this is how we're going to capture that it's been documented, that they've received it, and that there will be ongoing training in these different areas as needed. So that's how I look at it.
And I agree.
We'll put it into the agenda.
Okay,
So
thank
that-
you, Mayor.
Thank you. So that closes out that. And so we go, there is no unfinished business. Item 12. We'll go through these real quick here. The resolution 2304. The City of North Pole committees. I have pages 24 to 29.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Does anyone from the public wish to comment on this? I don't think there's anyone here. There's no one here, Madam Clerk.
Correct.
So public comments closed. There's a motion to approve. It's been seconded. Any discussion on resolution 2304? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Kromer,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Keller, Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mrs. Clock,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Anyone wish to change their vote? Item A, new business, resolution 2304 passes. The item B, approval of the master services agreement with respect on pages 30 to 42. If you'll pull that up. Danny?
As discussed during the comments and previously, again, this is a master services agreement with an engineering firm that we routinely work with. This provides flexibility for the city, provides us a quick contracting venue, and does not obligate us to use this particular organization, but it does provide us the ability to reach out to them for assistance, especially with utilities projects.
Thank
To
you.
approve master.
May I
service
ask if
agreement.
there's any public comment first before you move to approve it? I don't see anybody here for public comment. Public comments closed. Now go ahead with your motion, sir.
To approve the master services agreement.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Clock,
Yes.
Mr. Skips, Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Kromer,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. So approval of the master service agreement with respect passes. Item C, Chief Dutra, the seasonal police officer hiring program in the North Pole Police Department, pages 43 to 49.
So this basically is asking the council to authorize us to implement programs that are already in existence within the city. And this basically is seasonal police officer position in the Chino Lakes Park. That's our target first, is to bring on somebody to cover the Chino Lakes contract between May and September 30th. This person would obviously have to have the same credentials as a normal police officer, but it would open up a pool of applicants that are in the area that may have already have law enforcement experience, that want to work just a part-time job and don't need the benefits and don't need the extra medical insurance and things like that. So we would bring them in under basically the current pay scale that we already have in place, and use this as a scale based off their experience and how we would pay them. This also asks the council to inform the council, authorize you to allow us to do the part-time and temporary for other niche needs that the department might need for filling vacancies that we can't fill with the current staff, or if the current staff gets overtasked, or we have a particular hire that somebody that wants to fill a certain period of time or a certain amount of time, we have the flexibility to do so. So that's basically what this is. And there's no additional cost to the budget.
I assume there's no one from the public that wants to discuss this, so I'll say public comments closed. So I entertain a motion.
Move to authorize for authorization to initiate.
I second.
There's a motion to authorize seasonal police officer hiring. There's a second. Madam Clerk, call that.
Okay, Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Clock,
Yes.
Mr. Skips, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Anyone to change their vote? So that's been authorized to initiate the seasonal police officer hiring. And then we'll go finally to approval of the 2023 Internet Crimes Against Children Agreement, page 50 to 72. Take it away, Chief.
This is a Internet Crimes Against Children agreements, an MOU basically for us to participate in a multi-agency task force for investigating crimes against children on the internet. And it basically is a grant through the federal that's managed by Anchorage Police Department, and we're part of that group. And it authorizes us to give us $5,000 a year for training, and basically all we're required to do is participate in investigations and then maintain monthly stats on any cases that we may have. Luckily, we don't have a whole lot in the city, but if we do, they're there to help assist us with investigations if we need it. So this is basically a boilerplate agreement that we've had year after year for several years. And Zane has already proved this. It hasn't changed since last year. So
Thank you, Chief. And Madam Clerk, there's no one there to comment on this either. So I'll declare the public comment period closed and call the question. Or a motion. I need a motion to
Motion
approve.
to move for approval of this agreement.
Second.
Motion to approve the 2023 ICAC agreement seconded. Madam Clerk, call that roll, please.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mrs. Clock,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. That ICAC's been approved. Item 13, who goes first on council comments?
Mrs. Clock.
I have none.
Thank you, Mr. Keller.
No comment at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Welch.
Just from our Juneau visit there, I had a little talk with the lady who presented the alcohol board information, and I asked her, what are they doing to help our police forces up here actually learn and helping out with dealing with people who drive under the influence of marijuana, because I know you can't just blow into a device and figure it out. And I brought it to their attention that we have quite frequently, as I do duty outside my school, I have quite frequently while I open the door to a car to let a child out, a billowing cloud of smoke that is definitely not cigarette smoke, but marijuana smoke. And so it would be very nice for them also to maybe do something in that respect. So for those people who are out there listening, and if you choose to partake in marijuana, please do not do it while you're driving, so that we can keep especially our children safe. I'm sure they can wait till they get home to do that, but it's just very disappointing to see people not take it serious. Not only do they put the kids at risk that are in, getting in and out of cars at that point, whether they're picking up, but they're also putting the kids at risk in the car while they're smoking there. And I don't even think that that's supposed to happen. So just think about it before you light it up. So.
Thank you, Mr. Skips.
I have nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer.
I have nothing.
Okay, Mr. Jacobson.
Thank you, and council members, thank you for continuing your interest in the harassment and bullying policy. After we passed the resolution regarding the Manh Choh mine, sole transportation plan. I'm sure everyone received an email and documentation from Brenna Shockey from Kinross talking about their talking points against our resolution. I just wanted to again thank the council for working together to raise the issue that there are serious problems with this trucking plan, not with mine development, not with economic development, not with providing new jobs for our community, but what this volume of heavy loaded trucks are going to do to our transportation system. I was sick with COVID, so I wasn't able to go down to Juneau, but one of the things I was going to speak a lot about was where is the legislature and the governor's stance on funding the northern region transportation as far as increasing what they have consistently decreased year after year with road maintenance for northern region. They have suffered probably in the last 5 years a 40% reduction in funding. This trucking plan alone is going to consume millions of dollars for snow removal, patching, road repair, and there is no plan in place to hold this company responsible for any sort of contributions, any sort of maintenance. And we've heard from Juneau, there's not money, that the local entities are going to have to pay their way. Well, guess what? We went on record saying we don't agree with this plan because of the following reasons. So I think we did our due diligence. The other article that I passed out with this IGU news article, it was exciting that IGU, which is helping our air quality and to lower heating home costs, got this agreement. Once Kinross announced their trucking plan, the trucking costs for going from Prudhoe Bay to Fairbanks nearly doubled in cost because that's going to be the price of labor when you hire 200 truck drivers locally. There's not the labor market. So when you think about contracting for snow removal to prevent flooding, you're not going to get it for what we got last year. You're going to get it for double or triple. There are real costs. We will not find people that will be able to do this. So there are both sides of the equation. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, but everybody is struggling to find qualified drivers and mechanics, police officers, firefighters. And so we have to look at it as a holistic approaches and what is in the best interest of our residents in our community. So again, I'm not anti-Kinross. I am just very concerned about what it's going to do for the health and safety of our community and our residents. Today, I was driving to town to go to work, and there was someone going 85 miles an hour, weaving in and out of traffic. And I just thought, what's going to happen when there are these trucks on the road and there are accidents with a crazy driver like that? And that's not a rare occurrence. That's regular. So I'm glad we have as many traffic stops as we do in North Pole. That doesn't happen in Fairbanks. So I commend the police department for keeping our roads safe and enforcing the speed limits, because that's what makes it a safe community for drivers and pedestrians and school children who are oblivious to the fact that they have to stay on a sidewalk or stay on the side of the road. And with that, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm going to comment on Juneau. First off, some of the members that really impressed me gave me the impression that things are going to be good in this state and in this country, that they are willing as freshmen to come on board and stand their ground and explain their positions. Now, that doesn't mean that we're in agreement with them or that I'm in agreement with them. And so when it came to this thing with Kinross, I stood the ground of why we did what we did. I think that was important for me to do that and let them know that I have rode that highway several times over the years in my capacity coming back from Northway every odd summer from 2001 to when I retired in 12. And that's a April 30 to October 1 summer, and watching it like Cannonball Run. And so I'm actually coming a little further away than Tetlin is, but I'm used to the entire route, and know how people are trying to fly around those trucks, especially when you come to the summer development of tearing up the highway and laying it back down again, and people get stuck behind pilot cars. And so they're really trying to make a big run, and the biggest run you would think would be down there all boxed in, but actually it's between Grimmy Road past Eielson Air Force Base coming into North Pole that worried me the most. As I got closer and closer to home, it would be almost impossible not to have a whole string of cars running, ready to have a head on with somebody going in the opposite direction towards Delta Junction. I never really liked that. I'm glad I always had a satellite phone with me too. And in response to what I hear, two people did impress me though. Will Stapp was one of those, because he has a lot of energy, and he has great insights, and he's trying to find solutions. Someone else was on Senator Murkowski's staff, and his name was Aaron Teal. And when Danny and I asked him something, if he didn't know the answer, he'd say, I'm not guaranteeing anything, but he pretty much knew what he was talking about and knew how to get us towards some of the funds that we need, including the deadlines, and how we can go out and do it, and how his team will help us do it if we run into any trouble. So I was happy for that. When we're talking about what happens out here on this highway, I'm leaving as a passenger in the right seat of a very small car from the diner, turning Peridot onto Richardson to get a ride home. And a black like a Taurus SHO comes flying by, totally oblivious that we're there, and did everything it could, including turning sideways, going off the road, which the car behind us then had to react. We almost had a three-way. And when you see it through the bottom part of a mirror, in the side view mirror, what do they say? Objects may appear for longer away. Well, when you see it and it's not that, and then all of a sudden it's there, and I'm not driving, I'm just a passenger, and I just say, oh boy, people are not slowing down out there yet to this day. I think one of the biggest mistakes we ever made was increasing the speed limit on the Richardson so it could be an expressway. And I think people are out there saying, well, it used to be 55 and I did 70. Well, now I can do 75. I don't know what people think, but I would almost think from 12 Mile to Lawrence Road, we should be able to get it to go roll it back in the seasonal adjustment, if possible, to somewhere close to 50. People are just high rollers out there. So, but there's a lot of work dealing with the folks in Juneau. When you start listening, there were words, but a lot of times then the people start relating to you what their baggage is, if you want to call it baggage, what their experience is. We all are products of our experience. So it's not always cut dry. A lot of people don't know how much blood, sweat, and tears goes into a project to try to get it approved, to get it up there as a legislative priority. And so we just have to keep hitting it and hitting it and hitting it to get through, and realize that they figure we have the taxation down here. Well, we know how that goes too. And you can only tax so much. And it's one thing for a U.S. senator to stand there and talk about, we can't be 49th in everything. We're the 49th state, but we're in 49th place in everything. And they're worrying about why people are leaving here. Well, you can take a look at the inaction on behalf of the administration or the legislature, or for that matter, even us at local government level. So just so that you'll know, as Danny and I are sitting here wondering how we're going to put in for all this for water pipes and stuff in the city, I've got people on Barbara Lee asking, can I just go ahead and connect up to the water and sewer? Now, these are the same people 7 times in 22 years rejected it. But now that their wells are failing or their septic's failing, they see this is a cheap way, a cheap alternative. Well, I can't just let 1 or 2 of you hook up. There were 144 homes between Baker and North Star subdivision. And last time we checked, there were only something like 2 out of 144 in 2008 that wanted it. It's not going to happen. But more and more people along Lakeshore, Barbara Lee now are starting to see something that's costing them more. Now they want to jumped our system. So while we're looking at what we have to do for the inner city that's now 52 years old, we may very well have to look at the city at large, and we may have to tackle that. We may have to have a town hall to see what the people in Baker subdivision, North Star subdivision think about water and sewer, if we even go that route. But if we're going to do it, it might behoove us to do it all at the same time. It's the only thing I'm coming up with. So thank you for letting me say what I learned and what keeps going on. And I was happy to represent us down in Juneau. So with that, Madam Clerk, I'm asking if somebody wants to call adjournment here.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, motion to adjourn. Show us closed at 8:34. Thank you.
We almost made it,
What-
Chandra.
We tried.
5
we
minutes
tried.
late.